David Common is in Vancouver tonight. David, where do things stand now?
Well, Andrew, 10 p.m. here in Vancouver, and the rain that we've seen through much of the day is beginning to taper off, still falling, but not in the levels that we've seen. And to be fair, the amount of rain falling is not on par with the major flood event of a week and a half ago. Still, it is landing on already saturated ground, landing on terrain that in some cases remains flooded, remains caked in mud. And it is a very difficult situation. As you know, much more rain coming over the next several days, and that is a real problem for people who are here exhausted and still reeling, many of them from catastrophe.
Even as crews wrestle with the damage in Abbotsford, they're trying to shore up defenses because more heavy rains are now bringing new flood watches. As bad as it is here, the images emerging from the interior are catastrophic. Cars embedded in mud, buses moved by the unyielding water, where rivers bulldozed over the terrain until landscapes became permanently altered.
Wow.
These new maps show the extent of destruction on the Shaken First Nation. The bridge gone, so too is the power, phones, internet.
One of the biggest worries, too, is the way that the river has widened.
Lenora Starr, one of many who can't go home.
This is the lower part of our reserve, and this shows where all the flooding has been happening.
Some homes can't be used until the spring at least.
We're fearful for more losses, and it sure has changed our whole territory, our whole backyard.
These zucchinis and pumpkins were washed in a couple of kilometers in the big flood more than a week ago, and now with more rain, there are big questions for British Columbia. After dikes failed and roads were washed out, it has a serious reckoning on how it will protect itself in the future.
We're working hard on a new BC flood strategy.
But there have been warnings for years that BC's flood defenses weren't sufficient. Now a disaster has proven that. While the Trans-Canada Highway reopened a bit more today, other roads like the Coquihalla, a critical link between the lower mainland and the interior, will take much longer.
We're reasonably optimistic that enough temporary repairs can be completed to allow commercial traffic on the corridor in about 2 months' time.
Of course, the rain is back, hitting saturated ground and already swollen rivers. It's not just that more flooding is possible, but it complicates efforts at cleanup before the weather ices up.
And Andrew, you know, as we look at the events of the past 10, 11 days, just consider the burden it has placed on first responders, on those who have faced loss, as well as the many volunteers who have brought heavy equipment, a meal, a helping hand, as anything they can to those who are in need. The Prime Minister will have an opportunity to meet some of them tomorrow when he makes his first visit to the flooded region, Abbotsford in particular, meeting with Canadian soldiers, leaders, and volunteers who have offered that helping hand over the past couple of days, and in fact, week and a half. He'll have that opportunity, Justin Trudeau, tomorrow in Abbotsford. Andrew.
Okay, so let's bring in senior meteorologist Johanna Wagstaff. Joe, this is the first of 3 storms. Is the worst of this one over yet?
Andrew, we've got a few more hours of the steady rain across the south coast, and it has been steady. We've been seeing rainfall rates upwards of 8 millimeters an hour. So I think for the Fraser Valley, we've seen anywhere between 20 and 40 millimeters of rain. We may see another 5 to 10 millimeters, but luckily things are easy. We see the end of the first storm on the horizon. In fact, some blue sky possible tomorrow.
Yeah, and tell us about the 2 additional storms on the way.
A little more concern for storm number 2 and storm number 3. In fact, let me show you what the precipitation forecast looks like. Again, just a couple more millimeters tonight for those affected areas, but getting you through Saturday's storm, it looks like rainfall totals may be a little higher. We may be seeing rainfall totals push 80 to 100 millimeters for the Fraser Valley, along with additional snowmelt. And then I'm letting this run right through to Wednesday afternoon. That's storm number 3. A lot of uncertainty with storm number 3, but a lot of concern as well. You can see here all the whites on this map. That is the over 100 millimeter range. So getting nowhere near the amount of rain and the amount of time that we saw last week, but getting about that much over the course of 5 days. So there is concern now with response from rivers by the time we hit early next week.
Okay, Joe, thanks very much.
You're welcome.